name is Tao Tran. I'm the head of growth at Palexi, and today I have a chance to sit down with Andrew. And he's responsible for the sports side at Central Retail, and we've been working together for 3 years now. Today we're going to talk about the different challenges in the retail market, and Andrew has been in different retail markets across the world, from Africa, from Middle East to Asia. So I'm going to pick his brain about what has gotten harder in retail, what has gotten easier, and what can help him manage a retail business, improving, turning around everything that has to do with retail, and how does a performance management system like Palexi can come in and help retailers improve their business. Hi, Andrew. First of all, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for doing this with us. I myself have been a big fan of you since we started our collaboration together almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I will tell you why. So I always do a store visit to the stores that belong to the customers that we work with. At Palexi, we see the data side of things. We see all the metrics. We see traffic, conversion, ATV, who's in, who's out, staff interaction. But I also want to feel the human side of things, and that's why I do these site visits. And when I did this site visit at Super Sports stores, I was super impressed.
Thank you.
You have staff in there who are invested in my shopping experience as much as it were their own. They are as keen as me in finding me the perfect match for my picky requirements. And it's not just one time. It's time and time again. It's not just one excellent or a few excellent staff, but every time I go in there, whether it is myself or with my family or with my friends, it is the consistent shopping experience that I love. And that's why I have a lot of respect for you, the man behind the scene. I know it's not an easy thing to achieve.
There is a team.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course, and your team, everyone that I've met as well, who's all incredible. Yeah. But you have spent a long time helping different retail businesses achieve incredible things like this across Africa, Middle East, and Asia. If you had to pick the top things that you have felt most proud of, what would it be?
Okay, so first, thank you for this opportunity. So thank you for the opportunity to sit together and discuss. And like you say, starting from Africa, Middle East, but I think it's just really just seeing, is getting feedback exactly from what you've just told me now. So it's when you see, the proudest thing you can be in a store is when you can see it evolving and you can see it changing. So once you start to see that all the effort that you've put in and what you're doing, and you can see the consumer. So that when you see the consumer come into the store and you can see you can see their face, you can see the way they react, and then how your staff are reacting. So it's that whole energy. We like to say, and as a retailer, you like to say, even when you go to stores, that there's some stores you can feel the energy. Mm-hmm. So you can sort of feel the energy.
I can.
You can
I can
feel the
it
energy
for
in
sure,
some
yeah.
stores, and you can feel the energy is really good, and then you can feel in other stores the energy is not quite there. It's all about, we're customer facing, and it's all about the consumer and the reaction of the consumer coming in. Proud is definitely how you feel as when you see how things are changing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you see it in the sales, you see it in other things, but when you actually feel it in the store, and you're right, when you go to a store, you feel the energy. You're in the store and you can see it. You can see it, you can feel it, and the staff, you can see the smiles on the face of the staff as well as the customers. That's got to be the proudest.
So I was curious on one thing that you mentioned earlier. When you step into a store, sometimes you can feel the very different energy. Like it could be very positive, but some stores does not have that vibe.
Yep.
It feels negative. So how do you work on turning that around, the energy, or how do you work on turning the profitability around?
Well, I think the first thing you do on the store experience, and when you walk into stores, that my own experience, when I walk into stores, that you can feel something's not right. It's a number of factors. There's not one factor, but obviously, it's obviously you. Firstly, you have to be very positive going in there. So you have to, they need to know that you're helping them make sales. So at the end of the day, you need to go in and they need to understand that it's not just the stores as a back office. We're all linked, right? So
So
again,
they need to feel that you are there to support them to achieve
I think
their sales
that's a
target.
big thing. And then you're giving them the tools. So we call them the levers. So we have the levers like Palexi, and that's why it's such a great example. Palexi is a great tool to put into place for these guys to know that it's going to help them. So I think once they know, firstly, that you're involved and that you're supportive, the next thing is that they have tools that they can use, and that you're helping them to achieve, what they want. It becomes easier. So then I think the whole experience becomes a lot easier. And I think one of the great things has been sort of the partnership that we've forged together with Palexi, because that helps me and helps my team go a long way in how we can change, how we can reinforce certain things in stores, how we can change the behavior, and how we can become better retailers. And I think it's important. I think it's very important that we keep up with the times, and that we keep evolving. If I look back on my career, and it's been a long career, when we started with footfall and we started to look at the metrics and the performance systems, it was just the counter. And literally even down to, I remember sitting in one of my stores with a manual counter, and literally the stores would count. And they would count how many people were coming in, and then we'd try and do the conversion, and then we would take off the amount of staff, etc. So that's evolved completely. And now having the tool where, and that's been pretty interesting for me, because I've seen it evolve.
Evolution.
And the evolution's fast. And literally, and specifically more, I used in Middle East, we used other performance management systems, other companies that are doing it, obviously. So I've used footfall counters, conversion, ATV, looking at staff interaction, but not in the same degree that we do it now. And I think it's been incredible to just watch the progress, and then just see how that is, over time, that has progressed. And I think what's really exciting about the whole thing is that we keep finding more that we can look at, and more that we can actually, that
improve
we can,
on. Right?
we can improve, but also just, more insights. And I think that's why we probably need much more highly evolved systems in terms of how do we manage that, and then how do we bring that all together to create that experience. I've been lucky enough with my sports background and being in retail is to be involved a lot in design. So a lot of the stores that you see today, and even the ones in Vietnam, the design is not done externally. So we have a blueprint from Super Sports, if it's Super Sports we're looking at. So we have that all from a brand. But when it comes down to localizing it, and come down to how do we make that the best experience for a Vietnamese consumer, which is what we're trying to do now, and the person that's coming in, the sportsman, and the local that wants to come in, down to the children or whoever's coming in, how do we do that? And that's where we've been lucky enough to tailor it, and then working with certain partners, and that could be partners on the digital side of it, on the then on the performance system side, where we look at, okay, well, let's look at these categories, let's do this. So I think there's a lot of customization that
in the store design and the
a
assortments.
lot that we've been able to take into retail, which some brands are more set in the ways the brand does it, and that can be good and bad, because if a brand is good at retail, you take some of the top brands like Nike, and they're good at retail, and they have systems, and they have a format that works. Other brands are not so forward-looking, and there's a lot of brands out there that don't even look at footfall counters, and they don't look at their conversions and their performance metrics, which means you have to add that in. So I think we're just lucky enough that we have flexibility, and then we have the flexibility with the likes of Palexi and companies that can help us also tailor that, and then customize that experience. It's all about experience now. So it's all about, how does the customer feel when they walk in the door? And then how do you do that? And then obviously productivity from our side, is we can't just open stores to be nice. And we need to make money. So I think that's the next part. And I think the vital part is how do we take that whole experience, but then how do we make sure that we're very productive at the same time, and that we are getting, we are getting the profitability that we need to be getting in the stores, and that we are being able to drive the best experience and commercial side of it as well, which I think is
Of
important.
course, yeah.
Very important. Firstly,
Right.
you need to educate. So you can have 100 different metrics to look at, or 10 metrics, or 15, 20 metrics. But if the staff are not on board, if they're not educated in terms of how those metrics work, and why should, okay, I get people coming into my store, but if they're not sure clear on conversion, like what does it mean to me? It means that it's a lever you pull. If you can convert, you can have the same amount of people, but you're going to make more money. So but that education sounds simple, but actually, how do you get that across to your teams?
Yeah.
So again, they see the tools that you bring in. You have to take them step by step through. Probably you have your key KPIs you want to get in place first. Your footfall, your conversion, your ATV, your UPT. So there's a few you want, and maybe staff interaction starts to come on, and then you start to bring in, then you can start to go deeper into categories. You can bring in more on your all the other great things that you guys bring to it, and the AI can bring to it.
Yeah, because everyone starts at different levels, and we need to understand that
100%.
if we want to support them, because we need to provide them with the knowledge, the resource, and the tools that they need to succeed.
For sure. And I think that's what's been great about us working together, because we didn't just throw 100 KPIs when we started. We said,
I remember. You were very clear about that.
That was it, yeah.
Because for me, I wanted to move quickly. I'm like, okay, so what department is going to do this? What department is going to be in charge of this metric? And then you just take it one step at a time. Yeah.
Well, it's a personal thing for me, but I think it's important that you don't overwhelm and you don't have too much, because AI, and especially with the speed of technology, I mean, there's amazing things coming out, and I'm sure it's going to get faster and better. I think it would be very difficult to run retail, I would think, now that I've used performance management systems, to not have them. Like, I mean, if I just think in the old days when I started, it was just sales.
Okay, so why is it important to you?
Well, I think
what if you don't have it?
Because you won't be able to go, you won't be able to do what we call the deep dive. You won't be able to go in and really find the source of the problem. Because if you're just looking at sales, you won't know, and you won't have enough information to understand, okay, well, the sales have dropped. So in a store A, your sales have dropped, store B, the sales haven't. Once you start getting performance, when you get these metrics that are coming in from the system, you can start to look at, conversion. So then you can look, if your conversion's down, what's driving that low conversion? Is that linked to your store staffing schedules? So you start to link it to schedules. You start to link it to when you're receiving stock. The systems are great. What you give us is great, because suddenly you can see how many people are on the sales floor. Now, before you couldn't. So in the old way, I couldn't tell you how many people are on the sales floor. With the AI now and with the tools that we have, we can see at a time. So we could have more customers, and we know this because it's the customer interaction part. If a customer walks in, do we have the right amount of people on the floor? Or are they in the back room receiving stock? Or are they on a lunch break? Or are they on a... So I think it's all linked, and it's vital. And I think you will, as a retailer, if you're not moving and using these systems that are available, it's going to be pretty difficult in the future.
Yeah. So within the past couple of decades that you have been in retail...
Decades, yeah.
Decades. I don't say years, right?
That's decades, which is actually quite frightening, but yeah. Thank you.
What has gotten harder and what has gotten easier?
I think you can't say harder. I mean, it doesn't get easier in terms of the retail. Retail, there's more brands, there's more competition. I mean, that's natural. So there's a lot more happening. But that's the exciting part as well, because the whole competition side is that's what we live for. That's how we work with the brands. I don't think there's anything getting harder. I think the complexity's changed. So definitely, I think, and online has been a big part of that, because the move to online means that you're not going to get as many people visiting the store, or if they visit, they may not shop at the store. They're just going to go back and shop online. So how you link, and that's why we see it as one and not separate. And then that also then how you then measure it. That's
complexity.
That's the
has
complexity
gotten
because you're not
more
your store is not your final destination of sale.
So
it
many
can be
options.
It can be your online. It can be your online too, but it's all the same. So I think that's a complexity for anyone looking at for top management when they're looking at it now, because you can't just measure a store just on a store now. You've got to look at the other channels that you have. How do you measure it in totality? So how do you measure your complete business?
Totality and also relatively across your different stores, across your different brands, across different formats,
and locations
compared to the benchmark, to your competitors.
And I think I think the competitor thing is an interesting one, and why for me, Palexi's so good. It doesn't matter that we all have Palexi, and it doesn't matter that we're competitors, and we're all using systems. But I think it's not about that, because I'm a believer that competition is more. Is not an issue for me. It's more about how do you use your systems for your own product and for your own business. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really matter too much about. We need to know what the competitors are doing, but we can all be looking at the same things. How we use that's different.
So you keep mentioning that a retail performance management system is vital to you. So you cannot live without it.
I could live without it, but I wouldn't want to live without it.
You wouldn't want to live without it. Yeah.
No, not at all.
So when you have to choose between different solutions, what factors do you look at? What factors do you consider?
I think it's because I've used many, and some going quite far back. I think the most important thing it's like anything that you do, it's relationship. It's the first key is, what is the relationship between the two partners and the companies, because you've got to be reactive, you've got to be working together, and you've got to be looking at the same goal. If you're not, it's not going to work. So there are a lot of systems. I mean, there's tons of systems that you can get, but off the shelf, whatever. But you can have systems, but if it's not so firstly, flexibility. So like we have with Palexi.
Relationship, flexibility, and the goal that we're both working
together, 100%. But that really is, and it's been, and I'm not saying it because we're having this conversation and we're together and it's being filmed. I'm saying it truly. It's rare. It's sometimes quite rare to get those right relationships. But I think with Palexi we've managed to definitely do that, and maybe because we were there from quite far back, but also because we've evolved a lot together, and we've managed. We've grown together with it, and we've tried different things and that. And I think, for me, that's the key. So the key is really being able to, pick up the phone, meet, and say, okay, we need to look at this, or we need to understand this, and the great thing is what you guys do a lot, which I think, so it's not one-sided. It's not us asking for something, but I think what's really good is you guys are constantly evolving too. So it's not just we're evolving, you're evolving, and I think that's great. So you're constantly coming every meeting we have where you can say, well, should we track this, or should we try and look at this?
I think you should try this.
Which I think is vital.
And then working and finding the next thing.
Working,
maybe
and I think
it works,
analyzing
maybe it doesn't.
and analyzing it together to say, did it? Is this? So we've done this new KPI or this new metric we're measuring. Is it worthwhile? Is it something that is working and you're using it? And if not, do we not do it, or do we look at maybe we should do this? And I think it's all about progressing and understanding. So I think it's I like, you can hear it. I like this part of the business, and I like being involved in on the floor and with the different systems and understanding the consumers, because it's about people.
So if I were to recap, what factors you consider when choosing between different solutions, it would be the relationship,
Number
important,
one.
the goal, and also the flexibility of the system.
So as long as Palexi can keep that flexibility, I think it's wonderful. I think.
And talking about partners and partnership, you work with Palexi for almost 3 years, and you work with other solutions in other markets, like in Middle East, you had a different vendor. In Africa, couple of vendors, and in Africa, probably different solutions as well. And so I'm curious, at Palexi, what are we great at? What is the one thing you can find in us?
it's back to the partnership, about having the close relationship and the relationship, to be honest. I think more and more, I mean, if I go back to when I was using, and the systems have changed, so it has probably changed even in Middle East when I was working there, and I worked there for more than a decade. But there wasn't this. So there was not this
no
personal,
relationship,
there was
no
interaction.
interaction,
In fact,
no
can't
feedback
even,
to.
no. So when we were working with big performance systems, we never had a personal touch at all.
Really?
No personal touch. So,
I'm surprised.
No, because it was more numbers, and to be fair and to be honest, depends a lot on the market you're in. You've got to remember, a market like Dubai, Middle East, was moving at pace, so it didn't really matter because money was just, you were evolving anyway. We luckily, I mean, it was a nice position to be in, is that, you know, because retail was evolving so fast, the relationships weren't as important. Relationships become more important when things get tougher and when things are challenging. We started COVID.
Yeah.
So I mean, we had the whole experience of, okay, now we don't have stores because we shut them. So I think that's when a relationship becomes vital, because, you know, how do you manage the challenging and the tough times? And then it will be added. So I've never, to be honest, and back to your question, I've never had this at all, or any relationship where we've been able to really work from day one on what we want and what we want to see. And I think that's why it was so different, and why it has been such a different journey. And I don't know if that's always available to retailers and countries. I'm not sure, because I think we're in a position in Vietnam where it's happened, and it's been great to have that experience to be able to build it.
From witnessing a lot of progress, like you just mentioned earlier, from like way back then when retail was very traditional. So you have witnessed a lot of cycles of ups and downs, maybe even very different economic downturns like right now. What advice do you have for other retailers in emerging market?
No, I think the only advice, and I mean, we're in a bit of a downturn now, and I think the advice is, and I was talking to my operations today actually. The advice is, use the tools that you have, but I mean, the biggest advice is you know, retail will dip, and, you know, in the tough times is you've got to stay positive, and you've got to be optimistic, and you've got to be, you know, the communication, and you've got to even go further and deeper into the tools that you have. So use the tools, use the tools that you've got, because you can influence to a certain extent. You can't influence a downturn. You can influence to a certain extent how many people you're capturing, kind of, but once they get into your store, then they're yours. So
under your control, right?
They're kind of under your control, but you've got, I mean, there's a spend, but that's what you've got. So the issues, don't get caught up in what's happening around, but just really
focus on
utilize and focus those
control.
Tools that you have. And you know, if you're lucky enough to have Palexi and these performance systems, then you've got the tools. You need to really, my advice would be just you need to utilize. And we were talking the other day, this is the time when retail's tough. This is the time to be the best retailer. This is when you really do retail. This is when you become a retailer, because when it's easy, you kind of don't even have to look at all the KPIs. You know, if you're suddenly you're getting a lot of people and you're doing sales every day, you can get slack, and you can understand, okay, I don't need to look at this. What I like,
when times are tough,
that's why I like retail. When it gets tough is when you become a retailer, because then you've got to start looking at a lot of different angles, and then you've got to share. And I think also what I like about it, a lot of retailers come together in these times. So you know, because we're all facing the same thing. This is not an us and them. And, you know, we all have our brands, we all have our stores. We could be competitors, but at the same time, we're all facing the same issues.
So what's interesting is how you deal with it differently.
How you deal with it, and how you see. And I mean, I'm always looking at how other retailers manage situations, and then how do you manage it? So I think the advice is just be open-minded, be very open to it. You can't restrict and go down. You need to be very open to what's available and the tools, and to work together and work even closer, where you know you have your levers that you can pull. So.
It's great to hear that you've enjoyed our business together, and let's make it even greater.
Yeah,
and
and
greater.
I'm sure we
Yeah.
will. No, I'm sure we will. And thank you for this. I mean,
Thank you.
it's been a great opportunity to chat and talk. I know I talk a lot.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
I
great,
enjoy it.
great to
Yeah,
share
I
it.
enjoy
Yeah.
hearing
So
it.
hopefully we'll be, when we do it again, we can see even more progress, and we'll be talking about some more great things that we've managed.
Always
together.
looking at the next progress.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
No,
Andrew.
Thank you. All right. Great. Thanks, Tao.